Charles, you made a good point off the air during the break. People want to see the video we were talking about of that Maxwell Street shooting. I just retweeted it at Dan Proft, so you can go to at Dan Proft on Twitter and see the video and make up your own mind as we were discussing that incident. All right, other incidents. Over the weekend, we got pronouncements from the principals of the administration on the law enforcement side and the spokeshuman side, but mainly the law enforcement side is what's interesting. Merrick Garland ended his silence about the Hunter Biden investigation and the results of it, the allegations by whistleblowers that Hunter Biden was given special treatment by IRS investigators, that essentially Merrick Garland and others were putting their finger on the scale to the benefit of Hunter Biden. Gee, what a surprise that would be. Well, Merrick Garland said, pish posh, nothing of the sort.
As I said at the outset, Mr. Weiss, who was appointed by President Trump as the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and assigned this matter during the previous administration, would be permitted to continue his investigation and to make a decision to prosecute any way in which he wanted to and in any district in which he wanted to. Mr. Weiss has since sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee confirming that he had that authority. I don't know how it would be possible for anybody to block him from bringing a prosecution, given that he has this authority.
And he was never told no.
I'm saying he was given complete authority to make all decisions on his own.
He's given complete authority to make all decisions on his own, but whistleblowers suggest that he was intent on bringing charges a number of times over the last year, charges recommended from some at IRS, felony charges against Hunter Biden, since it was a classic tax evasion scheme that he had concocted and was told no by somebody. He also, in addition to never being told no, according to Merrick Garland, he also never asked to be special counsel.
It was not. The only person with authority to make somebody a special counsel or refuse to make somebody a special counsel is the Attorney General. Mr. Weiss never made that request to me.
Do you think, just to follow on that, do you think that a special counsel, can you explain the rationale for not appointing a special counsel in this case?
Mr. Weiss had, in fact, more authority than a special counsel would have. He had and has complete authority, as I said, to bring a case anywhere he wants in his discretion.
Mm-hmm. Well, somebody's lying. Somebody's lying, and I guess it's going to be up to the House Republicans to figure it out, because the D.C. press corps certainly isn't interested in doing that.
But that seems to be the missing element in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
There is no – the press is not performing.
Well, Charles, you have to understand, they're too busy blowing that George Santos case wide open. They don't have time, to deal with the Hillary Clintons of the world, the Joe Bidens of the world. They have their sights set on the George Santoses of the world, you see. And so, yes, it's going to be up to House Republicans, it would appear. For more on all this, we're pleased to be joined by Geoff Shepard, Deputy Counsel on Nixon's Watergate defense team, author of The Nixon Conspiracy, Watergate and the Plot to Remove the President. Geoff Shepard, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Glad to be with you, Dan.
How did you receive Attorney General Garland's comments? And, as you're sussing out, since you know this arena, as you're sussing out who you think is being forthright and who you think isn't, the whistleblower testimony as released last week by House Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith that makes these allegations, and Merrick Garland, who dismisses those allegations.
Well, you get to the same place you are, Dan. Somebody's lying. These both can't be true. And you start parsing the responses from the Attorney General. And that last quote you just had, where the question was, then nobody told him no, and the response was he had full authority to do what he wanted.
Yes.
But the leaks suggest he wanted to bring the case either in Washington, D.C. or in Los Angeles, and the U.S. attorneys in both of those areas said, no, we won't bring the case. So you've got this never land where the words don't seem to mean what the words are ordinarily meant to mean, and you think you're being had. And then I think roughly the same thing. This is so interesting. It was the opposite situation in Watergate. In today's Hunter Biden situation, they let him off with a slap on the wrist. In Watergate, the president's former lawyer, John Dean, had turned against him and had gotten immunity from prosecution, but they wanted to appear to throw the book at him so that he would look better at trial. Now, you can do one thing with the Congress, but in a prosecution, the defense lawyers could have torn John Dean apart. So they got the judge to sentence him to 1 to 4 years in prison to increase his credibility as a witness. And then, and it worked. They convicted everybody. But the minute the trial was over, the judge reduced his sentence to time served. So it turns out John Dean only served 4 months, the time of the trial, in technical confinement, and then it was only in a holding facility for government witnesses in the Witness Protection Program. So in fact, John Dean, the central figure in the Watergate, the master manipulator in the Watergate cover-up, never spent a single night in jail. And it's different time, different era, but the opposite of what they're doing today on the Hunter Biden case. The news, we don't know for sure what's going on, but we're getting a whole bunch of contradictory facts. But the news was they deliberately allowed the statute to run on 2014 and 2015 when Hunter's real most important felonies were apparently committed.
Well, the other thing, and the other thing he mentioned about the special counsel, the U.S. Attorney from Delaware had more authority than the special counsel because I gave him, omnipotence. Not exactly. That's not really the case. And one thing that special counsels do, as we've seen, that U.S. attorneys don't do in the customary course of their job, is put together these reports like Bob Mueller did, like John Durham did, that summarize everything they did and why they did it and what they found, that some of it may be legal, some of it may be dicta, that just informs provides almost like cultural commentary like Durham provided on the FBI. But boy, those documents are pretty important work product, and we're not getting that from David Weiss.
No, it's huge. It's huge.
Right.
But again, just for the fun of it, 50 years ago, the special counsel performed a different role. It was the first use of a special counsel since the Teapot Dome scandal of the 1920s, and it turned out to be a specially recruited group of highly partisan prosecutors from the previous administration, from the Democrat administration, and they got 100 people, 60 of whom were lawyers, and they announced at their first press conference they would investigate every allegation made against the Nixon administration from the day it took office. So using the situation of Watergate, which was a huge scandal, they expanded that with the idea of voiding Nixon's reelection. You've got the opposite today. The special counsels are, if they're career guys like Durham, if they've got a reputation as a nonpartisan prosecutor, they're what you need. And that report that you mentioned is huge because that puts everything into perspective. And normally, when the prosecutors indict, they can't explain everything that's going on if the press doesn't want to cover it.
Right.
But the special prosecutor issues a report. Now, everything goes back to Watergate. The guy who was prepared to write their report was a professor at Harvard Law School, criminal law professor, the first hire in the special prosecutor's office. And he took notes at every staff meeting to enable him to draft the report when they were through. And he took those notes improperly back to Harvard with him when he returned to the law school. And I'm the one that uncovered them in 2015. So I have, and they're available for anybody else today, but for the previous 40 years, they were hidden. And they detail all these decisions by this highly partisan group of prosecutors of how to prosecute Republicans and not Democrats, how to expand their investigation with the idea of taking Nixon down. I mean, it is a paper trail that I've uncovered of secret meetings, secret memos, secret manipulation that was kept from the public. And what was different back then is there was one uniform narrative from the media. You know, there were only 3 networks, there were only 2 influential newspapers, there was no talk radio, there were no podcasts, there was no Chicago Morning Answer with people raising questions about what if and what aboutism.
Well, and boy, somebody who learned that lesson well and applied it later in life was Hillary Clinton, who was a staff staff lawyer on the House Judiciary Committee. She learned the lesson well in terms of we prosecute Republicans, we don't prosecute Democrats, and that seems to have carried forward. Well, one other thing I want to get to on Merrick Garland, the other question that should be asked of him, it wasn't, is, well, why the special prosecutor in the Biden classified documents case and not in the Hunter Biden Inc. case, which implicates the same principle, meaning the president. So why special counsel in one and not the other? What could possibly be a legitimate answer to that question?
It's hard to believe you can come out with a straight face and say, no, there's no need for a special prosecutor in this instance, when it is as sensitive, the allegations are as shocking as they can possibly be, and they say, oh, don't worry about it because this U.S. attorney was appointed by Trump. And the answer is, well, yes, but there were 2 Democrat senators. I don't know the guy. I don't know his background. But it is odd. He conducts an investigation for 5 years, and he's one of 2 people held over from the previous administration. I mean, you begin to wonder about his bona fides.
Well, you got to wonder about how America dodged a bullet when Merrick Garland did not get a hearing on the Supreme Court to be appointed.
Oh yes, oh yes. In light of his performance as Attorney General, you wonder what on earth would have happened if he'd been confirmed to the Supreme Court. Maybe we stepped over a snake. Maybe this is the less worse alternative. I have a dear friend from Watergate who was on the Second Circuit, where Merrick was chief judge for the longest time, and I wanted him to contact Merrick and speak to my bona fides as an author. And he said, I'm not speaking to him anymore. His conduct as Attorney General has been so outrageous. I refuse to discuss things with him. And it was a startling statement from a senior judge.
He is Geoff Shepard. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say it is astonishing that he can come out and say these things with a straight face. I mean, you really have to wonder, is he just reading remarks that are prepared for him by somebody else, or does he really believe they've given the Hunter Biden situation the same aggressive prosecutorial reviews that they give other alleged criminals?
Geoff Shepard, Deputy Counsel on Nixon's Watergate defense team, author of The Nixon Conspiracy, Watergate, and the Plot to Remove the President. Geoff Shepard, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Glad to be with you, Dan. Thank you.
And
Bye-bye.
he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
I'm Amanda Zanger, owner of Black Industrial and Safety Supply in Hammond, Indiana, and a business customer of Signature Bank. Prior to owning my own business, I worked for a major financial institution. So when it came time to finance the acquisition of Black, I approached a big bank, only to receive a solid no. That's when Signature Bank stepped in.